YouTube. Welcome to my sacred space. My name is Lauren Victoria. I'm a mental health therapist and intuitive energy worker, and I specialize in healing and wellness through the intersections of mental health and spirituality. In this conscious conversation, we will be having a good, juicy discussion about how to create your soft life beyond the aesthetics, right? Beyond the trends. How is it that we can really reach happiness and pleasure in our everyday lives? So, our guest today is Amber Taylor, and I'll be bringing her in soon. But before we get to that, I just want to give you a little rundown on some things you can find on my website. So, bear with me. Without further ado, I will introduce our very special guest, Amber Taylor. Hello, Amber.
Hey, Lauren, it was awesome to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. And I'm happy to be having this conversation about creating a soft life with the pleasure priority coach. Who better to be discussing this with?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, you guys, let me tell you a little bit about who Amber Taylor is. Amber is an adventurer, a podcast host, and expert coach that helps people clear their shit so they can spend more time enjoying the life they want to live. She uses a combination of mindset and somatic work to help her clients heal and reconfigure their lives with their own pleasure and authenticity at the forefront. So, how are you feeling today, Amber?
I am feeling awesome. I actually just came off of a talk with Google and I am riding that
Wow.
high.
Congratulations.
Thank you so
Yeah. Where can we find that talk? Look, we need all the
much.
details.
That one is private to the Black Googler network within the company. But
Gotcha.
of course, like I hosted the conversation, so I host those conversations all the time. And if you'd like one for yourself or your company, I have those options on my website and also like in my email. You can just reach out and we can set something up.
Amazing. Okay, well, you heard her first. Actually, all of Amber's information is in the description box below. But Amber, can you do us a favor and tell us where we can find you online?
Yeah, so I am at Amber Taylor Coaching on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, I think too. And I am the Pleasure Priority, or that is the name of my podcast, The Pleasure Priority with Amber Taylor, and it is available on all streaming platforms.
Amazing. Okay, well, Amber, what we do know is that you're a woman of many hats. At least it sounds like, you have your hands in a lot of pots. But
Mhm.
I want to know more about Amber, the adventurer. That sounds like fun. What was your latest adventure?
Yeah, so I think what I was telling you earlier was I recently went to one of my friend's weddings,
Mhm.
and it was a mix of Pakistani and Egyptian culture, which I haven't had a lot of experience like being inundated in.
Mhm.
And it was so much fun to learn about a new culture, celebrate my friend, try different foods, new dances, like the
Mhm.
whole how they do weddings is completely different. So I like allowed myself to submerse in it. Like I used to say, I don't dance, I'm not a dancer. But now I was like in the circle in the
Right.
middle.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I love wedding culture in general, but it's something about the Eastern Hemisphere. The way that they do weddings, boy, they're like 3 days long. It's a
Yes.
whole shindig.
There were many events. There was like a henna party beforehand, which was low key more fun than the wedding. But
Yeah,
it was a great
nice.
time, and how they prioritize like love and family was really
Hmm. Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you're also a podcast host. You told us a little bit about that space. Like, what types of discussions do you usually have over there?
Yeah, it's honestly anything that pleases me. But anything that I see, like with my clients, common themes that I'd like to like address on that platform, or things just going on in the world that I'd
Mhm.
address too, ways to show up for yourself differently, how to learn to actually feel things in your body, um,
Mhm.
different tips and tricks and tools that you can use to practice this work on your own. Like I like my podcast to be like a self-contained, self-sufficient coaching tool, so you
Uh,
can listen and implement and learn just from that itself. And if you'd like
mhm.
to dig deeper, you can work with me.
Wow, how generous. Look, she's giving away the tools, y'all. Tune in definitely if you're interested again. Her information can be found in the description box below. So, last but not least, you are an expert pleasure priority coach. Tell us about your journey to this calling.
Yeah, so I honestly have always been into just how people work.
Mhm.
I initially thought I was going to go to school for psychology, but I learned that you have to be there for like at least 8 years, and job prospects coming out weren't looking the way that I wanted them to be.
Yeah.
So back then, my main concern was making money and being financially secure and stable. So that's why I chose business as a major. Got
Mhm.
hired to Microsoft like right after school and was making the money, was doing the things, was progressing in the career. Like outwardly, I was living a life. It was
Yeah.
everything that I thought I was supposed to do and have and work for, and I wasn't happy. Like I was overwhelmed, overworked, anxious, depressed, all the things. And I'm like, why do I feel like this when I did everything right?
Right. Check the boxes. What's wrong?
Checked all the boxes. Like y'all told me to check these boxes. Let's check the boxes, but the math is not mathing. And that's when I started to stop listening to what everybody else said about what should make me happy.
Mhm.
And I started exploring and learning like how to answer that question for myself. And that's when I found a podcast, the Life Coach School with Brooke Castillo. It was my first introduction into coaching, into mindset work, into learning
Yeah.
like how much power we have and what we're actually in control of versus not, and what we can do to change our situations. And I was just mind blown. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, I need to know everything that I can know about this, and
Mhm.
enrolled in the certification just to learn more.
Yeah.
And then as I was in certification, learning the tools, getting deeper in the work, it was 2020. And yeah, it was
Right.
like whatever 2020 was for you, it was a lot.
Right.
And I was kind of just noticing how I was handling things and how I was able to even identify and express my emotions and not try to bottle everything up and just
Mhm.
save face for work, and how it was contrasting from my peers, my friends, my family. And I was just like, people are struggling, they're hurting, and they don't know how to change or how to get help. Like they think this is just the way it is. And
Yeah.
I saw a gap that I could fill of how to help people really come back to themselves and find home in themselves in the
Mhm.
space they're in.
Wow, what a beautiful full circle story, right?
Came
Yeah.
back to it, yeah.
I think it's really beautiful. I was talking to somebody in the last interview about how healing and like just, mindset work, the work of improving yourself is so contagious because once you start to improve and once you are opening your mind to those parts of like yourself that maybe lived under society's rules or lived in doormat because you were shape shifting yourself into to fit expectations. Other people see that and they want that freedom, they want that liberation, and obviously because you got it from another life coach, like it's also in you to share. So you're doing amazing work.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's shift a little bit right into the conversation at hand, which is creating your soft life. You are the pleasure priority coach. I'm sure pleasure has a lot to do with soft lives, but can you tell us, like, what exactly is pleasure and why is it important to prioritize?
Yeah, so pleasure in my book is anything that brings you joy or satiation. And I think the wrap with pleasure is that it is heavily associated with sex.
Hmm.
And yeah, that can be pleasurable, but there's so much more to life and joy outside of it. So I
Right.
focus a lot on non-sexual pleasure and finding joy in everyday life, the mundane parts of life, the
Mhm.
even shadowy side as well. Like, where can we orient more towards pleasure instead of
Mhm. Ah, gotcha. Yeah, I love that you bring up, that sex obviously is a pathway to pleasure. I think it is easy to demonize sex and, physical measures of pleasure, but it is just as valid, right? But at the same time, we don't want it to be our only tool. And we don't want, addiction to certain pleasures or vices to become overwhelming in our lives. So it is important to find pleasure in those everyday small moments too.
yeah.
Mhm.
And in terms of sex and like sexual pleasure, it is something that I think a lot of people have a lot of context around socialization and expectations.
Mhm.
And a lot of people, just the way that we're socialized, like expect sexual gratification from
Mhm.
someone else.
Mm.
To know how to meet your own needs, to know what you like, to know what you don't like, to know what you want is a
Yeah.
very like internal and personal process. And I think, well, I find with a lot of people, a lot of my clients, that they're not ready to jump into sex first and getting pleasure in different ways from different aspects of that. Like, they first need to develop a deeper, stronger relationship with themselves,
Oh yeah.
like their own levels of self-trust, their own levels of like what they think about themselves, their
Mm.
body, how they feel when they're naked, like by themselves, then
Yeah.
bringing another person into that. Like, it's steps.
Yeah. There are layers.
There are
Okay.
layers to it. But yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, so many of my clients tell me like a side effect of working with me is better sex life. Um,
Okay. Look, check another reason to work with Amber.
like, even if it's not something like we directly talk about, because of
Yeah.
like how they feel, what they tolerate, what they think about themselves, how they
Mhm.
talk to themselves. Like, instead
Mhm.
of being like, oh my God, does he like this? Is this good? Or do they like this? Is this good? How do I look right now? What's going on? Blah, blah. It's, I am that bitch, and
Right.
you are
Period.
lucky to be in my presence and share this with me. And that changes
Yeah.
the entire experience.
That's so true. Because you know what? All those other questions are rooted in more than likely is shame.
Mhm.
And when we do have shame and we're questioning our worth or our value, it's really hard to also feel good at the same time because our mind is just like, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve to feel good. You're not, make sure that he's appreciating you or she's appreciating you, whatever. But if you know firsthand, like, yo, I'm here, this person's lucky to be with me, I'm lucky to be me, like, let's fully share each other's body, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there before myself, so shit, I know.
I think
um
we all have.
right. Can you tell me a little bit about, the in our everyday lives, right? When we are living hard lives as opposed to soft lives, like, what are the red flags? How do we know that we're not living a life where we're prioritizing pleasure?
Yeah, so similarly what you just were talking about, of if we're living rooted in shame, if we
Mhm.
believe like there's a problem inherently with us or everything we do or say, and we're second guessing and questioning
Mhm.
ourselves, we are people pleasing, like trying to do everything for everybody else,
Right.
change ourselves to be more palatable or acceptable by other people, and we're really just one, disconnecting from ourselves and our own true wants and desires, and then two, putting that barrier up, like you were saying, again, rooted in shame, but I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Or like so many people think the things that bring them joy are rewards,
Mhm.
or like we put them like over there at the finish line, like I have to do XYZ
Whew.
in order to get this. I have
Mhm.
to finish this thing or send this many emails or get a promotion or do whatever
Yeah.
in order to allow myself to experience joy.
Right.
And that's backwards. It's not it's not this luxury that you can wait to give yourself. It is necessary. It
Yeah.
helps you keep going. It is the Esther Perel calls it the life force
Mhm.
within us of like how we continue to move through life, to go through, to combat like the death. We
Yeah.
have this joy of life of things that go wrong, just stressors, negativity, work, life,
Mhm.
finance, like all the things going on in life need to be balanced by what brings you joy so you can continue to live in that flow.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I work with clients too, a lot of clients who I tell them that mindset really of like, okay, well, I need to do this, and that before I can, get my nails done or before I can treat myself to some free time. And I say, do you recognize by withholding that that's punishment? You're literally punishing
Punishment.
yourself
Mhm.
as opposed to being using that self care as your baseline, right? Filling your cup up. You don't want to wait until you get on E to then be like, okay, well, now I'm going to do something for me because I'm miserable.
Yeah,
What? Because you know what sucks about that is when you do get down to E and that, exhaustion and burnout and tiredness is there, you don't want to do self care. You don't even want to meditate.
exactly.
You don't want to
Yeah,
move. You don't want to go to the gym. You don't want to go, you don't feel like it. So you have to keep the atomic habits, right, of pleasure and self care in your life to stay motivated to keep working.
yeah. It's like because it is when you go all the way down to work, it's or all the way down to E, it's
Mhm.
so much work to
Yeah.
get back to a place where you just feel normal, feel good. And as you were saying, like it's a punishment to withhold your pleasures, your joy from yourself. And I think so many people are like, well, yeah, I need to be punished. Like I need
Yeah.
like we have these like negative motivators. Like if I talk down to myself, if I'm mean to myself,
Right.
all this, then I won't do it again. And that's not how it works. Like you being an asshole to yourself does nothing except make you feel like shit. It's
Right.
a motivator, it's a demotivator. And then
Mhm.
like you can, you know, do it out of spite, like, okay, I'm gonna I don't want to talk to myself like that, so I have to do these things. But
Yeah.
that fear-based motivation
Yeah.
doesn't last too long. Again, you run out of steam and then you just get to this place of
Right.
like don't have the energy for anything. And that's why it's like I don't look at pleasure or joy as rewards or like things that you save for later. Like I look
Right.
at it as sensate, that's not the right word, as essential as
Uh,
eating, sleeping, going to
mhm.
the bathroom. Like you need to do those things to stay alive, to drink water. Like you need to do that. That's the area that I categorize as pleasure.
Yeah. Non-negotiable.
Not
It's so funny, Amber. I have been working on my own personal journey of like centering pleasure in my life because so much of my life was hard. I also checked all the boxes and, honor student, gifted child syndrome. I just have to be the best at everything.
mhm, mhm,
And, I was recognizing that I was having a whole lot of anxiety and stress just constantly. And I
mhm.
was like, okay, I would practice self care when I found time for it, right, between work. And I had the epiphany like, oh, I have to do this stuff every day. I have to like, oh, these are non-negotiables. I can't like not do it because I can feel the difference immediately. So it's a matter of like, keeping your car afloat. I tell my clients, you wouldn't try to drive to California from New Jersey with one tank of gas. You would be refilling constantly. And we have to be the same way about ourselves, our motivators.
Yeah. Yeah. And like thinking about it more holistically of like it's not just refilling, but it's also like, did you get your brakes checked? Did you get your oil change?
Yeah.
Do you have food on the way? Like New Jersey to Cali, like where are you stopping and sleeping? Because we're not
Right.
doing this straight through. All of that stuff matters, and like
Mhm.
taking it into account of your life. And it's not just the, okay, I got to get a massage or I'm getting my nails done.
Right.
All that stuff is awesome and great, but
Mhm.
it's also deeply connecting with yourself and
Mhm.
understanding, like just having that presence and being like, am I doing what I want to do? Am I being
Mhm.
supported in the ways that I need to be supported? How do I feel right now? What do I
Mhm.
need? What would make me more comfortable? And just living your life in accordance with what you need, what drives you, what motivates you, what makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are like, that makes you selfish and narcissistic and blah, blah,
Uh,
blah. But when you're coming from this place of like overachiever, recovering people pleaser, all this
mhm.
kind of stuff, you were never doing that stuff before. Being selfish is
Yeah,
exactly what you need because you're
exactly.
not gonna go like straight to the other side of the spectrum and be like, fuck everybody and everything and
Right.
like, like when I'm working with my clients and my people who come from this place over here, being more selfish really just puts you more in the middle of
Yeah.
learning how to take care of yourself too,
Yeah.
instead of leaving yourself for last and taking care of everybody and everything else.
Absolutely. I tell many of my clients the same thing, right? I'm like, is it selfish or is it self-preservation? Because there's
Mhm.
a big difference in the
Yeah.
connotation. Um, doing like saying no, so many of us are just afraid of that. Oh, what will they think? What will they do? Even, whether it's
I
with their
need to be
partner, with
available.
friends, people will figure it out. Like
Yeah.
you will have set a boundary and other people will work around it. What do
Yeah.
you do when people tell you no? Figure out something else, right? Like
Exactly.
it is just that simple sometimes as far as being selfish or self-preserving. It doesn't mean that you have to hand people your ass to kiss, right? It just means that you're literally working within your capability and within your
Mhm.
desires and not overextending yourself, chronically.
Yeah, it's like
Mhm.
you are being an adult. Like
Right.
we're not children here. We're not dealing with children. Like if you have kids, that's different. Parenting is
Mhm.
different. But everybody is an adult and everybody can do adult things and figure things out for themselves. They can have feelings. They can have reactions.
Yep.
Even if like you say no and be like, "Oh my God, they're gonna be offended." Let them.
Right.
That's a them
And
thing. Because when you're scared to say no, it's not like you're just saying yes. It's that you're saying no to other stuff. And usually you're saying no to yourself.
Mhm.
So it's like, would you rather say no to somebody else or no to yourself? Because you're
Right.
saying no. You're just not
Mhm.
always acknowledging who's getting the
That's such a good point. Woo! Drag us, Amber. Drag us.
no.
You know, so it's so funny because clearly, right, the conditioning of the hard life is so deeply rooted. And I'm curious, like how have we been conditioned to live hard lives and be disconnected from our pleasure?
Yeah. I think the idea of individualism, and not really asking for help or
Ooh.
leaning on community
Mhm.
or like I did it by myself. I pulled myself up from my
Right.
bootstraps or whatever the saying is. Like having this very individualistic view is praised
Mhm.
and like good job. Oh, you did it. You didn't need any help. You did it by yourself. Like that's amazing. But
Yeah.
it's also so draining and everybody doesn't have the resources and capacity to one do that in the first place and two do that long term. And
Yeah.
then when we have dips in capacity or dips in our self-esteem, and we start to doubt and we start to question and all those stuff, and then we then again internalize and blame ourselves and look like,
Mhm.
I have a problem because
Yeah.
I can't do it by myself. I have a problem because I'm in a situation where I need to ask for help. And
Mhm.
instead of like living in community and relying on others and understanding, you're not going to have everything figured out. You're not going to be perfect and you're not here alone.
Yeah.
We then judge and blame ourselves and
Mhm.
get into this whole cycle of that. So it's one, the individualism, and then two, I think there's also this idea of like again, kind of with the individualism, but pushing yourself to the point past your limits. Like
Uh,
just keep growing, keep expanding, keep doing it. Like discomfort is your friend and all that kind of stuff.
yeah.
Time and place.
Right.
It's not always true. And like constantly pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone or pushing yourself to do things that you don't really want to do
Mhm.
disconnects you from what you actually want and where you actually feel safe, and can allow yourself to expand into that new version before you try a new thing and then
Right.
do it again.
Yeah, that's a very, I feel at least hustle culture minded thing, it's like the constant grind, the constant growth, and get a LLC, and you need rental properties, and you need to be in the gym at 4 a.m. and you need to go to work and you
And
need
you
to get
need a
married.
morning routine, and you need a
Right.
friend group, and you need to do yoga, and you need to be
Mhm.
an expert, and you need to have this thing and that thing. And like if you're not doing all these things, like that's another thing. It's like basing our worth and our productivity, how much
Mhm.
we're doing or getting done, or how much
Yep.
money we're making. And like we can only feel good if we check all these boxes and do all these
Mhm.
things on a regular basis, whatever that means.
Right.
And is it like we just get into this place where again we're judging and shaming ourselves for living a
Mhm.
life differently than what people tell us we should be doing.
Exactly. And at the root of that is comparison, right? What are my peers doing? What are the people that even the people that I look up to, what are they doing? And if I'm not hitting those boxes, I'm falling short.
Mhm.
I've been in that place, to be really honest. I went to school for psychology. I remember I started for business because I was very money minded. And then
Mhm.
I swear to God, like the day before the last day to switch your major, I read like some magazine on campus that was like a senior giving advice to freshmen. They were like, "Don't pick a major based on money. Do what you love." And I was like, "I love psychology." And I am really grateful that I chose it, but at the same time, around my late 20s, I was recognizing like, damn, it's a whole lot of money in business. Like my life could be looking a lot different if I didn't want to help people so bad. So I was like, damn, I need to make more businesses. Like I need to own some property, and I'm supposed to be able to afford these types of outings, and I want to be able to have dinner and go to happy hour and not worry about the bill. So I had this grind, 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 get another job, add a side hustle, and building and trying to monetize every facet of my life. And baby,
Mhm.
I was burnt out
Burnt.
to the brim,
Yes.
tired, ugly, like in spirit and physical, because, I had separated my worth and my value from, beyond who I am as a person and the gifts that I have to offer and how
Mhm.
I keep those gifts nourished through self care. And it was completely what is my economic worth? Right. And how do I measure against the average, 25-year-old or 28 or 30-year-old
Mhm.
financially? And that was a really negative aspect that I recognized that I had to let go of. I was like, well, I'm moving on my time.
Mhm.
And pleasure, if I can center pleasure in the middle of the ways that I'm trying to grow economically, then it won't feel agonizing in the process.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be easier.
Yes, and nail on the head, because I think the devil in comparison is that
Mhm.
we never make clean comparisons. We're like, okay, what does this person at this age make financially? But it's just like, okay, also, what are their opportunities? What are their commitments? Like, do they have kids? How, like, what do their bills look like? Did their parents pay for all of them? They're starting from scratch, or like all so much goes into it, but we're just like, oh, well, they go to happy hour, they go on trips, they don't worry about, so that must be where I need to be.
Yeah.
Like, how do they feel every day? Like, do they actually like the job that's making them all this money? I mean, some people do, but a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Like, are you willing to trade that peace, joy, satiation, satisfaction for a check?
Yeah.
Really, if the answer is yes, then the answer is yes, but being upfront and honest about that beforehand. And then, like you said, also, like, when you center pleasure around it, it's not just about like, I only do what I want to do and nothing matters anymore, and I'm just here because blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, it's about really asking yourself what you want and how you want to prioritize things in order to get to that want. So, like, I want to make more money, and I can center pleasure around making more money, expanding my businesses, and all that kind of stuff. But then I come back to myself to see how I want to do that, what that looks like for me, what results, what timeline I'm on, all that kind of stuff, instead of so and so did it like this, or this internet guru said I should do this, so I'm gonna do that. And then you just start doing all these things, expecting these results, and then again looking back on yourself like, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
That just ain't for you.
Exactly. You followed their study plan, their blueprint. And it's nice, there's a give and take. Like we are tribal, to your earlier point. We're tribal in nature. We're supposed to be able to brainstorm and commiserate and fellowship and build off of our ideas and support. But at the same time, we are individuals in the sense of how do we get to our self-actualization, right? If you follow Courtney's plan to self-actualization, you, right, Amber, are going to get a different outcome because Courtney, at the end of the day, is an individual. And Amber's plan to self-actualization, to pleasure and soft life, it starts with exactly like you mentioned, coming back to self and saying, what do I need? How can I make the best of where I am in the present moment, right? And if I have certain goals, how can I get to that with the resources that I have and with being able to collaborate with community, because we're not supposed to do it alone. We are absolutely not.
Yeah, we all have our reasons for being here. Like, I believe that we have multiple purposes over a lifetime, but they're all individual to us. And us using, like, you using your thing, me using my thing, Billy Bob and Joe over there, their thing, we all come together, and like shit just starts to make sense.
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to be our own person, be our own individual, follow our own path collectively.
Yeah. Collective experience. Tell me, Amber, I know as a life coach, you focus a lot on mindset and somatic work also. Can you tell us what somatic work is and why it's important?
Yeah, so somatic is literally just a focus on the body. And I think with a lot of coaching tools and mindset tools, we stay in our brain, and it's just, you have to think differently. You just have to change your mind about that. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
And it's not always that simple. And even with the mindset tools that step you through, the communication within our body is two ways. So brain sends to body, but body also sends to brain. And it's really narrowing on the body's wisdom and the messages that it's giving you, and like fostering that connection and open communication, so you can learn of like, all right, I am having a dip in energy. I don't really feel like doing all the things that I said I was going to do today. Like, instead of just being like, oh, I'm so lazy, I need to get a planner, I need to like tell myself to get it together, I'm never goals or whatever. It's just like, oh, actually, I'm about to start my cycle. That like, and so there's an energy dip there. Or actually, this is like the anniversary of my family member's passing, and I'm like just noticing like what else is going on and like what your body's trying to tell you and what it needs. And it's like, all right, I kind of just need like some time to literally lay on the floor with a blanket. Like, I lay on the floor with my weighted blanket and just like zone out. And it's
Yeah.
like, because sometimes I just need that pressure. Like it's got to be a weighted blanket because it's like I want to feel
Yeah.
held, and just like having that communication to be like, what do I need? And instead
Mhm.
of that, like workhorse, get it
Mhm.
together, just do the thing and blah blah. You feel better after you give yourself what you need. You don't need to be
Yeah.
down and out for weeks on end. It's just you have a need that's not being met. You take the time to meet it and nourish yourself, comfort yourself, give yourself what you need,
Yeah.
and then you can get back to it.
Exactly. That's such a good point. The nervous system is sometimes wired to give us a hard life, right? Not because we naturally come here, predetermined or predisposed soft to hard lives, but because trauma, right? Chronic stress literally lives in the body. And sometimes I work with a lot of clients who come to recognize that, like, the fight or flight has been their baseline for so long that when they do get to moments of rest and peace, it's uncomfortable. And they're like, I should be doing something. I need to be moving. No, you don't. Sit down, right? Stretch, like relax. And, sometimes that mental, whip cracking of like, do, move, move, move. It's also a reflection of somatic anxiety.
Yep.
If you can't sit still, and pleasure isn't always stillness, but I think it's a really big part, and especially for us who are transitioning from a hard life to a soft life and trying to be more intentional.
Hmm.
um, we have to be able to tolerate going within and saying, okay, what's going on here? But we
Hmm.
can't do that if every second of our day is packed with activities and things to do. And then when you do get a second and notice how you're feeling, you're like, I shouldn't be feeling this. I should be able to keep going. And I'm being lazy, like you said. I'm being too needy. No, you're not. You need to listen to your body. It's not separate. We are holistic beings.
Yes, exactly. Like I associate pleasure with presence and like just being there, being in the moment, being like a part of it all. But as you were saying with trauma and how the body stores things, we can get, I mean, based on our history, based on what we've been through, even starting in utero, like
Mm-hmm.
that's when things start affecting us. And based on what your mom was experiencing,
Yeah.
how you came into the world, how you were cared for in the first years of life, like really changes how you're wired and what you're geared toward. And a lot of us are in this place where we are oriented towards pain. Like we
Mm-hmm.
are oriented to that fast pace, go, 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 can't take breaks, survival mode, all that kind of stuff. So that's what's comfortable for us because that's where we're used to.
Yeah.
Where, like you were mentioning before, when we take that time to settle down, to get into a new environment, to even when you haven't had money for a long time, like your whole life, and then you get a job and you have money now. And it's
Right.
like that transition to going from scarcity to abundance
Mm-hmm.
has an effect on your body. Like you start, oh my, well, I just got to save everything because what if I lose the job and all that?
Exactly.
You got to get reacquainted to it. And that's why the focus goes to orienting to pleasure, orienting to
Mm-hmm.
what feels good, finding comfort in this new experience and learning how to be with your body and give it what it needs to metabolize uh, the old things, what it's been through, and process so it actually feels good and comfortable to
Mm-hmm.
be in your soft life.
Yes. Look, um, I have been using this quote that my partner shared with me. I forget if it's from a book or what, but wherever you go, there you are, right? And I talk with a lot of people, my clients, my friends, family, who are like, okay, if I could just, get this new job, my problems will be solved. If I could just move, to a better apartment or out of the state, if I could just do X, Y, Z. everything will be fixed. And I hate to be the harbinger of bad news, but it won't be, because wherever you go, whatever environment you're in, the only thing that is the same is this: your mindset, your body, right? And
Mhm.
those reflections, and patterns and cycles that you live in. So it is really so important to do that mindset shifting work, to learn to listen to your body and tolerate, giving it what it needs, as opposed to pushing yourself past that. And
Mhm.
that's why coaches like Amber Taylor and therapists like myself exist to
Definitely.
remind you that you're worthy, and we're more than just workhorses, right? We're
Mhm.
more than just productivity sacks of meat here trying to pay rent and, like, get the car there. We can actually enjoy life. We don't have to be miserable. It doesn't have to hurt.
Yeah. And I'm a fan of changing circumstance, new job, new relationship, new
Yeah.
whatever. But also, like you said, that doesn't change how you feel. It doesn't change the situation.
Mhm.
So, also, we're here to remind you and show you that you can change, you can feel different without those circumstances
Mhm.
changing, without moving to a new state or getting to a new job or whatever.
Mhm.
Your experience can be completely different exactly where you are.
Yeah. And guess what? Like, the beautiful thing about the law of attraction, which I believe deeply in, is when you decide that you're going to focus on pleasure in your present life, with whatever you have now, whether that includes a mindset changes, somatic work, and healing, um, what you go for, right? Those other goals, moving, getting a new job, starting a side gig, whatever, that becomes easier because you feel better. You're attracting,
Mhm.
those things that you want with a higher vibration, with higher energy, because you're not burnt out, you're not miserable, or just only focusing or looking for what's wrong and what's missing. You have shifted to that abundance mindset, so you will find abundance more easily, of course, with continued intention, right? With the continued behavior changes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I'm sorry, were you about to say something?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Can you tell us what happens when our mind and body are disconnected from each other?
Yeah, that's when we get into the burnout. That's when we get into overwhelm. That's when all these other things happen, the chronic stress, chronic fatigue, chronic illness, depression, anxiety, all the things when we aren't connected.
Mhm.
Because taking when we take ourselves away from ourselves, when we try to separate and compartmentalize,
Yeah.
we're really cutting off valuable information, valuable input from different parts of us. And when those things get neglected and they go unheard for so long, we're off. We're
Yeah.
just off kilter. And like it may work for a while, but long term, is going to cause more problems than it's really worth.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point. I tell my clients all the time that, like, we as humans think that we compartmentalize way better than we actually do. Like,
Mhm.
compartmentalizing is, supposed to be a temporary, not chronic, not lifelong thing. And I tell them, for example, if you're miserable at work and you hate your job and you hate your coworkers, you come home, you better believe some of that misery comes with you. And then you talk to your partner, you better believe some of that misery shines through, especially if it's a long-term thing, right? That we're compartmentalizing. If you've never dealt with traumas or, fears from your early childhood, those are still coloring your mindset and your somatic patterns and messages. So avoidance, right? Compartmentalizing is really just a matter of delaying, unfortunately, most times.
Yeah. It changes how you see things.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
like you said, when you put things in a box, like again, time and place, like maybe you get into a fight with your partner before the workday and you're like,
Right.
all right,
I can't deal with
I'm
this.
gonna put this to the side, right? I'm gonna go through the day. But then after your work day, like when you have some time, like you gotta open the box again.
Yeah,
Like you can't just
yeah,
keep stuffing things in there and expecting them to just magically disappear. They
right.
will stick around, they will color how you see things, they'll change how you see things, they'll change how you react. And then it's like I consider it abdicating your own power, losing your own power,
Yeah.
because you're now at the whim of how you feel and your reaction to this thing that you're not willing to look at,
Hmm.
versus like this thing is real, this thing is happening, and I'm choosing how I want to show up in that situation,
Hmm.
versus, well, this is just how I am.
Yeah, right. A slave to impulse, right?
Mm,
And that's being reactive as opposed to being intentional and mindful about it. But it's that mindfulness comes, we exercise that muscle when we create the space to sit with and deal with those things
mhm.
alone first, or at least in a safe space, right? So maybe that's with a friend you trust, a person you trust, therapist, coach, whomever. But it's as long as you come back and face those things and acknowledge them. The sooner you do that, the sooner your mind body align. The sooner softness and pleasure can become more attainable.
Exactly.
Beautiful. Uh, Tell me this, right? Will you, as a pleasure priority coach, right? Would you say that a pleasurable, soft life is truly accessible to anybody?
I'd say it is accessible, but it takes work to get
Mhm.
there. As we've been discussing this whole time, it takes you looking inward, you looking at yourself, you opening these boxes and looking at what you've hidden away.
Yeah.
And it's also deciding for yourself what a soft life looks like for you. 'Cause
Mhm.
my soft life and your soft life can be totally different,
Yeah.
but the basis of it is living a life that you feel comfortable, that aka you're not in the survival, you're in the thrive, aka
Yeah.
you're also living a life where it's less stressors. Not to say you will ever live a life where you don't have stress, because we're still human.
Yeah.
Long as we're here, that's going to be a part of it. The stress, the negatives, like it's all going to be a part of it, because that's just part of life, and we need
Yeah.
balance. We have to know the bad and even to be familiar with the good. But when you're living a life of less stressors, it's like not putting yourself in situations that you know you don't like or don't want to be in,
Right.
at allowing your boundaries to be crossed, putting boundaries up in the first place, creating your circles in with people who support you and love you
Yeah.
and that you trust and feel safe around. Like it's deciding how all of this looks like for you personally,
Mhm.
and everybody one isn't willing to do that work. So I will say like that work is the barrier to your soft life, but it is available. And
Mhm.
again, it's like different people, different experiences, different histories. There may be more or less steps to get to where you need to be or want to be.
True. Yeah. And this is a good point. So yes, it's accessible, contingent upon, right, how much work we're willing to do, and how realistic we're able to be, right? As long as we're not over comparing and we're
Mhm.
really being realistic about the present moment, right? What we can do now. I talk to a lot of moms, actually, who are, overworked naturally, like they have a lot going on. And my main thing with them, just as an example, is like, okay, well, self-care and like socializing can't look like before you had kids necessarily, right? You don't have 4 hours in the morning to kick it. You maybe don't have 3 hours on a Sunday to go to brunch with your girls. What does it look like now, right? What does it look like to maybe invite your friends to the zoo with you when you take your kids? Vice versa. You know what I mean? It's a matter of being realistic about the circumstances now as you're building to wherever you want to go. It's nothing wrong with having ambition, right? But you don't have to punish yourself in the meantime.
Exactly. And working with yourself to make sure that your needs are met.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that this is a long game, like soft life is your life
Right.
forever. It's not like now I have to do everything and it has to be this way
Yeah.
exactly at this moment. And if I'm not doing that, then it's not right. Like, no, like allow yourself to make little changes that
Mm-hmm.
over time uh, make the big change look like make things look different. And then that example that you were just using with the moms, and it's really about focusing on, okay, what do I need here? What am I really looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be like, oh, I don't have time for going out or brunch or doing the things. And it's like, okay, I'm looking for connection.
Yeah.
How do I find that? Maybe it will look different than when I was single, but maybe my friend groups also look a little different. Like
Yeah.
a lot of my friends don't have kids yet, or like their lives look different. Like how can I get into more mom groups where we are walking the same path and
Yeah.
like understand the same things and like are on this level of what's understood doesn't have to be explained. So I'm not spending that under emotional labor just
Right.
justifying my existence and my desires. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's finding the root of what you want and
Mm-hmm.
being creative with how you can resource yourself and support yourself in getting it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Amber, pleasure priority coach extraordinaire, what ways have you oriented your life towards pleasure?
Yeah. So there have been a lot, but my biggest thing was kind of when I was going down this journey. I told you I was checking all those boxes.
Mhm,
I decided to uncheck everything that wasn't for me or that I wasn't doing for me.
mhm.
So it didn't all happen at once, but I quit the job. I left my marriage. I'm now happily divorced. I started my own business. I started doing things simply for the fun of it. Like I joined kickboxing.
Mhm.
I have a pole in my apartment that I like just like to play on.
Right.
Um,
Take a
I
spin.
to take a spin, yes, connect back to myself and really reoriented my relationships, my friendships, even the friends that I've had that have known me through many iterations and many versions of myself. It's being clear and upfront and not necessarily having a conversation with everybody, but being like,
Mhm.
this is who I am now. This is what I expect
Yeah.
from this relationship. This is what I'm comfortable with, what I'm not comfortable with. This is what life looks like with me moving forward. You can opt
Yeah.
in or you can opt out, but this is who I am.
Yeah.
Really taking in all of those things, accepting myself, everything about myself, accepting my diagnoses. Like I have an ADHD brain, and like, how is that actually a superpower? How does that benefit me? Like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not neurotypical and follow the neurotypical path or even can do everything that way. But when I step out of that's the right way,
Right.
what's the right way for me? Um,
Right.
and then even with like depression and anxiety, like I have depression and anxiety, and even like I had a pretty bad dip last year, and but it was also my best depressive experience, like which is to say,
Right.
but it was like I was still down. I still didn't want to do things, but I wasn't judging myself for
Right.
being there. I wasn't saying it's a problem or something's wrong with me or I need to figure something out about how to just not feel like this. Like
Mhm,
I accepted myself for who I am and what
mhm.
and everything that comes with that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. It's, the radical acceptance of self, right? That authenticity and choosing to love yourself and, support yourself along the way. And that is such an important experience and component because we're usually so quick to judge. As soon as we fall off of the beaten path of productivity or whatever goals and whatever everyday thing we tell ourselves we have to do. It's like, oh my God, I need to get back on track. I'm not doing this right and I'm falling off and I'm this and I'm that. Girl, like, it's okay. Life is not a linear path, right? We get to take the deroutes or reroutes or whatever. We get to sit down for a while. Like you said, it's a holistic process of choosing the life that you want to live. And I'm so grateful that you were here to tell us how we can choose to live the lives that we want to live and live softer and live with more pleasure in general. It is an honor to have you here, Amber. Can you remind us, where can we find you online?
Yes, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. But I am online website, Amber Taylor Coaching, Instagram, Amber Taylor Coaching, Facebook, Amber Taylor Coaching.
Right. It's real simple for y'all.
Yeah. And the podcast is the only difference. And that is The Pleasure Priority with Amber Taylor.
Yeah. And Amber, what can we be on the lookout, from you in the future?
Yes. So right now I'm offering a lot of small packages. I have wonderful offers for single sessions and monthly offers. However, I am working on my first retreat, which should be
Mm,
at the end of Q3, beginning of Q4. Um,
okay.
so look out for that. It's going to be
Okay,
so much
amazing. Yeah, that sounds like fun. A retreat with a pleasure priority coach, y'all. Come on,
fun.
come on. So
Yes.
I'll be following up, obviously, because I want to know more about it. And if anybody watching wants to know more about Amber, you can visit her in the links in the description box. And again, thank you so much, everybody. I hope that you are having a beautiful day, and I hope you subscribe to the channel for more conscious conversations. If
Yes.
you would like to have a conscious conversation interview, there is a link in the description box below where you can apply to have a conversation with me. And before I get out of here, I will run my specials one more time. I'll see you guys.